Hello, Unicorn Tribe. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's surprise pop-up live that we are doing today with Miss Laquita Parks. She is going to talk with us a little bit today about how to heal through your story. So, just going to read a little bit about Miss Laquita. She has an amazing bio, but Laquita is the founder and CEO of Pair Pro V Publishing Company and a Failure to Communicate LLC, as well as a relationship communications coach and mentor with a passion for people and their well-being. Laquita is also the founder and facilitator of Excel, a social communication group for women who need to discuss different issues ranging from personal to political. Laquita is a Christian and a single mother of three adult children, ages 26, 28, and 31. Laquita has a 1-year-old grandson who stole her heart from first sight. Not only is Laquita a self-published author of several books, including her semi-autobiography titled Walking Limitations by Other People's Definition, Good Morning Friends, and a first-time author of a new children's book called My Neighbors Don't Like Me. She has published numerous books that have helped hundreds of people on their healing journey, as well as books that bring awareness, such as From Fears to Friends. I love her scripture that she stands on. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear because fear involves torment. But he who fears has not been made perfect in love. 1 John 4:18, and that was from the New King James Version of the Bible. So, Laquita, welcome to the tribe.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is exciting. It is a pleasure to meet you. I love what you're doing. So thank you so much for the invitation.
Awesome. No worries. I am going to leave it to you. Take it away. Help us heal through our story.
Okay, well, oftentimes situations in our lives leaves us physically, mentally, and emotionally scarred. So walking limitations is my story. My story started when I was 4 years old. At the age of 4, I was having all these issues with my tonsils, sore throats, and my mom took me to the doctor, and the doctor said, hey, we can help. She just needs to have a tonsillectomy, a simple procedure. So my mom took me to the hospital to have my tonsils taken out, and all I knew was I didn't need to be afraid because afterwards I was going to be able to get a lot of ice cream. And at 4 years, I loved ice creams,
Yes,
ice
ice
cream.
cream.
The surgery went well. Everything was great. My mom left me at the hospital with my aunt to go home to get ice cream, and I had two other sisters. And while she was gone, all heck broke loose. My mom came back to the hospital. She walked out of the elevator, and all she could hear was screaming, and there was so much commotion going on. She was rushed aside by the doctors rushing me into surgery. While my mother was gone, a nurse came into the room, took a needle, and jabbed it into my thigh. My leg was swole from at the age of 4 to about this size,
Oh,
and
wow.
my bones, my blood vessels, everything started to deteriorate. And the doctors told my mom that if they did not get me into surgery immediately, my leg would burst and I would die.
Oh, wow.
4 years old. From the age of 4 until the age of 14, I had surgery every year on my right leg and foot. So from that time to this one, I have had over 15 surgeries on my right leg and foot, and it left me deformed. They told my mom I would never walk again, but I did. I did. So those were the beginning of my walking limitations. And actually, my walking limitations started before then because I was a child of a teenage mother. So
Mm-hmm.
at the age of 17, my mother had me and I was the second child. So by the time this happened to me, my mom had 3 children. So my mom was under the age of 20 years old and she had 3 children. So my walking limitations had already started. And
Wow.
then here you have a young mother with 3 children. Now she has a handicapped child because it left me crippled for life.
What
So
actually caused it What did she give you some wrong medication or?
It wasn't, I was given penicillin. It wasn't the penicillin, it was the way that she did it. First of all, I was the wrong
Okay.
patient. I was not
Mm.
supposed to get the shot. I
Okay.
was the wrong patient. So I can imagine if you walk with me through your mind and you're getting ready to do something, but you're not quite sure if that's what you should do. You know, you have this nervousness. And this is me imagining that this is probably what this nurse was going through. And I don't know her. I never met her. But I'm imagining that she came in, she wasn't quite sure, and she may have had somebody saying, okay, you know what? She may have been getting ready to get off work, her shift might have been over. I have no idea. All I know is when she came in, and according to my aunt said that I was nervous. Well, I just had surgery. All I knew is I was supposed to get ice cream. Nobody told me anything about shot.
Right.
So at 4 years old, I'm timid. I'm scared, and she was impatient. My these were my aunt's words. She was impatient. So as she went to give me the shot, she took the needle and she jabbed it into my
Oh,
side, and she struck the bone. So
oh,
that's what happened. So from that point, I ended up having to I had to have surgery on my foot. The bone deteriorated. They had to take bone out of my pelvis and put it in my foot. They had to do a skin graft, and it affected me all of my life because I was never able to have my babies vaginally. I had to have 3 cesareans because my pelvis didn't open. I have lymphedema. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis at the age of 11, lupus, and all of this stemmed from the shot. So we're talking
wow.
about walking limitations. So how do you get from, so, you know, I have people say, Laquita, how do you get from there to here? I was never able to go outside and play like other kids. I couldn't run and play. In fact, if it rained real hard, they wouldn't let me go to school because I
Mhm.
could walk out and trip over a rock and break my ankle. My bones were very, very fragile. And I used to joke with my children and call myself, I was the first Forrest Gump because I wore those braces that clicked and clacked every time I walked, and the kids picked on me. I was picked on. I was bullied. I was called grandma because I had to wear, you know, walk with a cane. Can you imagine being in elementary school and middle school, not middle school, high school, walking with a cane? What are the kids gonna
Mhm.
call you? They're gonna call you grandma, and that's what they
Yeah.
did. So we're talking about all of these were walking limitations that I put on myself. I mean that
Mhm.
somebody else put on me. And
Mhm.
then because of that, I put walking limitations on my own self. So my own walking limitations became a part of my, so I started making choices because, you know, my self-esteem was this low. I esteem. I didn't want to be seen. I was picked at, so I didn't want people to see me. I was very shy. I was very quiet. So, you know, I didn't feel loved. So I was looking for love. And so whoever came along and they loved me, then, you know, I kind of migrated to that. So I got married at 19. I had my first child at 20, and I was in an emotionally, physically, sometimes mentally abusive marriage.
Mm.
And my children, you know, these were walking limitations I put on myself. So this became a part of my story. So then I'm like, okay, I was a victim. I was a victim. So when we're a victim, we live in our victimship. You know,
Mhm.
everything we do is like,
Yep.
okay, I'm a victim. We behave like a victim, we speak like a victim, and then we allow other people to treat us like we're victims. I got
Yeah.
tired of that. I got tired of that. And so I started finding my voice. I started listening to my inner thoughts. I became a Christian, and I got baptized into Christ, and then I started finding my voice. And I was like, okay, this victim stuff, I don't like this victim stuff. So I went from victim to victory. So I became a survivor
Right.
and started owning my own story, responsibility for my own thoughts, my own actions. And then I started to realize that what happened to me was not my fault. It didn't have anything to do with me. It was the
Right.
choices that this nurse. So I no longer had to wear that. That wasn't on me. So I was like, okay, I got to release this. So how do I do that? So I started writing, and writing became therapeutic for me. I started sharing my story with everybody who was listening. And I'm crippled, so I have a one leg is bigger than the other, one foot is deformed. So I have a host of problems, and people was like, wow, I didn't know. But when I was living in my living as a victim, I thought everybody knew.
Right.
I thought everybody could see my leg. I thought everybody paid attention. I walk with a limp, and when I would tell people, I walk with a limp, they was like, really? I didn't know. People who've known me for years, I was like, really? So then I started to realize that sometimes we think people see things that they don't see.
Right.
It's
Right.
us. It's
Yeah.
us. They don't see it. It's just us. So
That's that
I,
inner critic. It's the
it's the
inner critic that is ready to self-sabotage you at any given moment.
because I'm
And
not good enough.
yeah, my coach calls that the assassin.
Exactly.
The assassin
Exactly.
is already
Exactly.
ready with the knives up, ready to cut and dice you at any time.
Exactly. Oh, I like that. Listen, I'm gonna borrow that. I'm not gonna give it back either. I'm gonna borrow that. The assassin. I like that because we want, and then we want people to ride in that victim pool with us.
Yeah.
You want somebody to come in with you. And luckily, when I became a child of God, I started having people to tell me the truth and to tell me that this isn't your fault. My aunt is 95 years old, and one day my aunt said to me, whatever happened to that lady, whatever happened to that nurse that messed up your leg? And I looked at her. She's 95 now. I looked
Mhm.
at her. I said, I don't know. But that got me to thinking. I said, I wonder what her life has been like.
Mhm.
I wonder if she thinks about the little girl who she messed up. I wonder if she thinks about what my life has been like.
Did she
And
know what happened?
yes, she knew. She knew.
Oh,
She
okay.
actually, and I talk about that in my book, girl. I talk about when my mama shot up the hospital.
Ooh.
Um, she did know, and she stole my medical records from the hospital. My mother's deceased now, but my mother told me that she years later my mom went, was at the hospital, and the elevator doors opened, and the woman was on the elevator, and
Mm.
she said the woman was pregnant. And when the woman saw her, now keep in mind, this woman knew exactly who my mother was because my mother my mother barely missed her head shooting at her. That
Mhm.
she was angry. We do so many things out of anger, girl. It
Yeah.
really is a thin line between love and hate.
Yeah.
So she was my mother said she kind of cowered up into the corner of the elevator because she was afraid. And my mother said she looked at her and she said, I'm not going to do anything to you. She said, I'm not going to touch you. I'm not going to hurt you. She said, but I hope that that child that you're carrying, I hope that you go through as much with that child as I have to go through with my child for the rest of her life. Because see, at that time, they had told the doctors had told my mom that I would never walk again. And at that time, I couldn't walk.
Mm.
So I didn't walk. It took years of physical therapy, occupational therapy to learn how to walk again. So all of this compiled my walking limitations. So I started writing. And the more I started to write, the more I started to find my voice, the more that I felt, okay, you know what, there's something to this writing thing. So writing became therapeutic. So I started keeping journals. I started writing about my day and writing about my emotions. And the more I wrote, and here's the thing, I would write and then I would go back and look at journals. One of the best things that I can tell somebody is when you write a journal, keep them and then go back and look at where you are. If you're writing in your journal and say you're starting today is November 2nd and you go November 2nd, 2021, and you don't see any progress, then you got to take a hard look in the mirror because at some point you got to be growing.
Yeah.
If you're not growing, then you're not going anywhere. You're staying put. And if your life isn't changing, you're the problem.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
with that I started, I was because I have lupus and started going through some physical things, and I was like, I gotta figure out how to have a quality. So I can't run and jump and play, and I can't stand for long periods of time or walk long distances, but my mind is strong. So I started writing. So I book called Good Morning Friends because I believe there's power in motivating and encouraging other people. So I started writing, I wrote that, and then I started having people call me and say, hey, let me ask you a question. I have a question about a book, or I have a question about something I was going through, they were going through in their life. So they started asking me for advice. So I started doing some sidewinder coaching. People call and they have questions for you, and let me get your opinion on this. And I started to realize that people valued my opinion, and I was very honest with them, and I was able to connect with people through my own struggles. And the biggest question is, I don't know how you do it. So a part of my walking limitations and a part of all this surgery that I had, you cannot have 15 surgeries on one leg and not endure pain. You cannot have rheumatoid arthritis and not know pain. You cannot have lupus and not know pain. So from the one of the takeaways, other than the deformed leg and the foot, is pain. I have been in pain every day. I have had pain every day from the time I was 4 years old until today. I don't know a day without pain. People say, "Oh wow, my arm hurts or my leg hurts," and it's different when you think of pain. My pain,
Temporary.
think of,
It's
yeah,
temporary.
it's temporary, but
Yeah.
think of, it's 1:17 right now here in Atlanta, and think of 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, all the way back around to 1:17. There is no relief from the pain. Now, some days are better than others where the pain isn't as bad, but some days are really, really great. However, that pain has caused me to keep going. I'm very stubborn because I don't like for somebody saying, "Oh, well, I don't think you can do that." And if it's within reason, and I'll have people all the time say, "Well, you should be resting, or you should be doing that." And I'm like, if some people, if they want you to sit down and do nothing because they're sitting down and do nothing, they're fine with that. But for me to have a quality of life, I had to start telling my story. And to have the best quality of life, I started helping people heal through telling their story. I Pay Pro V, and I know it's a funny sounding name. It's actually Pay Pro V, and when you think of it, think of pain, progress, victory. Because
I like
without
that.
pain, there's no progress, and without progress, there's no victory. So through all of the pain that I've gone through in my life, and being, having healing through telling my own story, I thought, you know what, let me help other people tell their story. So Pay Per View Publishing was birthed, and we help people take their stories from a thought to a realization. Everybody has a story. All of us have a story, but not all of us will tell our stories. For those of us who take the time to write our stories, only a percentage of those people who write their stories will actually publish their stories. So with Pay Pro V Publishing, it's a unique and a beautiful place to be in this position, because I have an opportunity to hear the inner part of people's story, and to listen, and to trust, and I never get tired of it. Because you can walk down the street and you see somebody out in the street and they're doing something that's really strange, and you're thinking this person is crazy, but you don't know their story.
Right.
You can be in the store with somebody and they can be walking around the store, and looks like there's no life behind their eyes. You don't know their story. You can
Right.
go to school with a child and see the child all over the place, and the child might be having fits. You don't know their story.
Yeah.
So
One thing
having
I will say too is, for people, just because you write your story doesn't mean you have to publish it.
Exactly,
Sometimes
exactly,
writing is the healing, therapeutic part of what you need to grow and your journey. So hear Miss Laquita when she says that she can help you write through your story. That
exactly,
doesn't mean that you have to publish a book.
absolutely,
That doesn't mean
absolutely.
that you have to put it out there to the world or to anyone. You're writing it for yourself. You might be writing it for God. You might be writing it for your children. Whatever it is, it's to help you heal and help your
Through your
healing
story.
journey.
Absolutely. And I tell people when people talk to me, the very first question I ask is, what's your purpose? What do you want to do with your story? You don't have to, you can write your story. You don't have to publish your story. You can, if you want to, I have a client who wrote his story. There are two books of that story that exist. I have a copy and he has a copy. And he did not want it released for publication. He only wanted to be able to put a story write his story in the book and put it on his shelf just for the accomplishment, like, wow, I wrote this story. There are people and there are people who come to me and they want to write their story or they want to tell their story, but they're afraid of how it's going to affect other people.
Mhm.
So, and I coach them through that process. You don't have to share your story. If you want to write your story and you're afraid of how Miss Mamie down the street is gonna respond to it. We work through that also, because one of the things, writing your story is healing, but not everybody is gonna agree with your story,
Right.
and that's okay. But because it's your story. I have in my book, my ex-husband didn't really agree with my story, but I told him it's my story,
Right.
and if you don't agree with it, write your own story.
Right.
So it's healing, and you do with it what you want to. Yes, publishing your story can create passive income, or it can just be a book that sits on your shelf. Look, when I first got this book, I didn't do a whole campaign and let's do this. I gave bits and pieces of it, because just to see my name in it is like, wow, I look back at it. Can you imagine how many people I've helped with my story? I've had
Absolutely.
people to call me and say, wow, I had no idea. And just from that little conversation has been, let me tell you what happened to me as a child. And these are people that I've known for years and had no idea. And I'm like, wow. So healing through your story is positive. And another thing that we work on is fear. I work with my clients on looking at fear differently. Some people look at fear as, you know what, it will stop you in your track. But I just kind of turned it around. Instead of looking at it as, you know what, this is fear, let's break down what FEAR is. So we're not going to fall. We're going to look in our future. We're not going to be anxious. We're not going to be anxious. We're going to be happy. We're going to turn all of those negatives that fear, tells us, we're going to turn it into a positive. And people say, well, how do I do that? You simply START. It's
Yeah.
like, what? You just START. You start. Well, how do I start? Well, you set goals. You
Pick up
take
that
that
pen
S.
and start
You
writing.
set goals. You just pick up a pen. You pick up the pen. Even I have people who don't like to write. Pick up the
Get the
phone.
book.
You got
Yes,
a
do the
you
voice
got a
recorder.
yes, you got a recorder on your phone. Just start talking. And then with start, I love to break down. I love to break down letters. So with start, you set goals, and then you think positively. We cannot think negatively and positively at the same time and think there's
It
going to be
don't exist.
progress.
It
It
doesn't
won't, it
exist.
doesn't exist. So you think positively, and then you accept responsibility for your own thoughts, your own feelings, and your own actions. Own it. I own my thoughts. I own my feelings. I own my actions. Now, I didn't say that my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions are always right,
Yep.
but I have to own them.
Yeah.
And when you talk to people, that's why I love coach. I have one of the best business coaches in the world, and I have great mentors. You got to put yourself in connection with people who are, number one, going to tell you the truth, and
Yep.
number two, going to help you be better. So here's the thing: a lot of times we're victims. We're feeling like victims, and we're upset, and we don't like how we feel. So we want to surround ourselves with people who feel like us.
Yeah.
We want to surround ourselves with those people who tell you, girl, I know that's right. If I were you, I wouldn't. If I was you, or you don't have to. Because when you think about it, they're right there with you. So they don't want you to move up. Because if you move up,
Misery
it's going to
loves
force them.
company. It's that
Exactly.
misery loves company. And it's like, I don't have, I call them yes men. I don't have yes men or yes women around me. I have people that's gonna keep it real with me all day, every day. Girl, you was wrong. You need to call him. You need to call her. That wasn't right. What you said was offensive. This, that, and the third. They gonna call me on it. They're not gonna let me do wrong, so to speak. They're not gonna let me treat somebody any kind of way. They're gonna check me when I'm wrong.
Exactly.
They're not gonna
Exactly.
tell me what I want to hear.
Exactly. And that's the thing. People tell us what we want to hear, but we don't grow. We don't grow. And you know what? And it doesn't feel good. You got to get to that point. It doesn't feel good. When somebody's telling me that I've done something wrong, I'm going to listen. And sometimes you get that feeling in your stomach, and sometimes you want to be guarded and you want to put that, put those blinders up. But then you stay stagnated and you're wondering in 5 years, why am I still in the same place?
Right.
Because we haven't received, we have to learn how to receive in order to grow and in order to heal through our story. We have to, first of all, some people say, you know what, well, they did this to me. You cannot take responsibility for something somebody else did to you.
Right.
As a child, you don't have any control over where you eat, where you sleep, where you live. As a child, I was 4 years old. I didn't have any control over nothing
Right.
at all. So that was not I had to release that in order for me to heal. And when we start doing things, we set goals, we think positively, we accept responsibility for our thoughts, feelings, and actions. And then we reach thinking how we see things. If we're seeing things as always black, then we got to put some color in it. We got to put
Absolutely.
color in it. And then we got to take small steps one at a time. The best way to eat an elephant, if you eat, is one step. You got to take one bite at a time. You can't cram the whole elephant down your throat. So
Right.
take small steps, and that starts the healing process. Start telling your story, write it. However, I will preference this by saying, and it goes back to something you just said, you just because you tell your story, you don't have to publish your story. But I'm not telling you to go tell your story to somebody who you don't trust. Also, when you tell your story, if you tell your story and you want a story, there's a process that we go through with that too, because prepare you for what that feels like. Because in telling your story, when I told my story, I had to think about my children. I had to think, how were they going to feel? Will people look and say, wow, I didn't know your mom was, crippled, or your mom was this or that. There was my family. My mother's deceased, so I interviewed my family to make sure I had the story straight. And then there was my ex-husband. Well, I thought maybe I thought maybe less than this amount what he would think, because my story is my story, and we all have to have our healing. I made sure that my story was accurate. The last thing you want to do is write your true story and it's packed with lies.
Right.
So you want to be honest, and then you want to talk to heal. And you sometimes some people will confront you about your story. You accept what you want to accept. You don't have to accept anybody confronting you about your story.
Right.
And people will do that because sometimes when we get wronged in our lives, they want to justify why they did what they did.
Right.
So in healing, we have to heal. And Pay-Per-V, and I said all that to say Pay-Per-V gives people a positive, productive platform to tell their stories. I walk them through the process. I have a dynamic team, and I don't unleash anybody on anybody. I don't push my services on anybody. I have people who come and they want to tell their story. Today is November. They might not be ready to share that story with their daughter or their son until next year. They might want to just work with me. I have people who are sharing their story and they're like, I want to share this story, I want to get it out, but you cannot use my name. And that's fine. The only people that know who it is you and me. They know that they need to get it out, but they don't want their family to know that it was them. And when we read the story, when you read your story, or people close to you read your story, they'll know. I don't have to call my mother's name. Everybody has a mother.
Right.
Everybody born has a mother and a father.
Right.
So you have to you have to take those small steps, set goals, and it's a process. I'm not going to say it's easy. I'm not going to say it's something that happens overnight, but I will say if you take the step, if you start taking the steps, if you move 1 foot, then you're moving. If you don't even move that 1 foot, you're still sitting in the same place in 5 years and you're still hurting because you need to get that story out. And people don't realize that things that happen to us in our childhood or things that happen to us when we're younger, if we don't clear that stuff out, it will affect us for the rest of our lives. It's kind of like you got a little carpet and you walking over that carpet every day and it's like, wonder what's under that carpet. And before you know it, you fall flat on your face and the carpet has gone from a little bit of dust to a whole mountain of drama up under the carpet because you haven't taken the time to clean it out.
Right.
So it doesn't feel good, but once you get through the process, I guarantee you're going to be like, wow, what was I thinking for the last 20 years? Not getting this out. You
Right.
can breathe better.
Right. I will agree. When I started, my story is definitely not um anything like that. And that's a point that I wanted to make for people is you don't have to have a dramatic story that you came back from death, that you lost a limb, that you lost
Exactly.
your whole family your story doesn't have to be that. It's whatever is keeping you stuck, whatever is keeping you afraid, whatever is keeping you from moving forward. For me, I had my first child out of wedlock. I was 19 when I got pregnant, 20 years old when I had her.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my shame, having a child early, young, out of wedlock. And I'm the oldest sibling, I'm the oldest grandchild. So, you know, I struggled for everybody. And so my
Mm-hmm.
cousins and my sisters saw me, and so they was like, yeah, no, we not gonna do that. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
none of them had kids, early. They all went to college first, got their degrees, all that. My story was the total opposite.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like my bachelor's degree didn't come until it took me 7 years to finish it because I had kids.
Girl, it
And
took me 20 years to go get mine. 20 years.
yeah, so your story is your story. So guys, I just want you to hear that you don't have to compare your story to someone else's. It's not a competition. There's
Exactly.
no evaluation. God ain't looking
Mm-mm.
down and putting it on a scale. Okay, hers is
And
a
your
little bit
story
more
better than her story. My
yeah,
story is
yours is a little
boring.
bit more dramatic. Hers got a little
Exactly.
bit more drama. No,
Right.
it's
No.
your
Mm-mm.
story and it's what you need to do in order to heal yourself and get on your journey to personal development, self exploration, and whatever else it is that you need in that moment.
Exactly. I have yet to, in all of the stories that I've heard and all of the people that I've connected with, I have yet to hear a story that I say, oh, that's not a good story. In every single story has been different. My story might be of medical trauma and all of the things, I was a child of a teenage mother. She was not responsible. We were put out of every place we ever lived in. However, I love my mother. She passed away 11 years ago, and there is not one day that goes by that I don't think about her. And the lesson is she was young. She
Right.
was young. She didn't know what she was doing, but she did the very best that she could. And I'll tell you one thing, it is not an easy feat to have a child. You already got 3 children. I'm the middle child. It is not easy to have a child that has all the medical issues that I've had to have all of my life, but I never missed a doctor's appointment ever. I never missed a doctor's appointment. I never missed a physical therapy appointment. I never missed the occupational therapy. And my mother never drove. So
Mm,
we took the bus and they pushed me in the wheelchair. And I tell you what, I didn't, I graduated on time.
mm.
I had homebound teachers. So this was my mother. My mother did the best that she could. She may not have been able to, care for us financially the way that she would have wanted to. So we, financial things were difficult, but that was my story. So here we have a spectrum. So here's one end of the spectrum. Here's the other end of the spectrum. My story could be one of medical abuse. I mean, medical trauma. Somebody else could be of physical abuse. Somebody else could be of an addiction of sorts, and we all meet in the middle.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. So I love that you said that. Some people some people have a story to tell, but they feel like my story isn't like that. It doesn't matter. It just like you said, whatever is causing you to stay stuck, whatever is causing you to not be able to, something that sometimes we go through things that cause us to not be able to connect with our children.
Right.
So whatever is causing you to, to not be able to connect, to not be able to connect with people, to you feel like you're having some fallout in your relationships. I do a women's group. I love my women's group, and we get together, and they're so funny because I'm an out of the box kind of thinker.
Is this
So
a Facebook group?
you know what? I don't have a Facebook group, but I should
Okay.
probably do the Facebook group. And I'm doing a lot of reinventing since the COVID. So this ladies group, we met once a month, and I would plan the topics from January all the way through the year, so they would know what the topics would be. However, it was always a twist to it. So in January, we might talk about discovering me. So we're meeting at an art gallery and we're painting. I see, probably see this, you're discovering me picture behind here. So we're doing something like that. Or it's like, okay, you know what do you want to do? We want to here are your thoughts. These are my goals for the year. So I take them and I intertwine them, and so I can help you achieve your goal. We're all going to focus on that. We're all going to help you. So every month kind of, it might be Laquita's goal this month, it might be Mary's goal next month, but we're all doing those activities, and we're meeting in a different secret place every time. And when I did the very first one, I tried to do a little different. I had it at my house, and I asked my daughter. I said, I wanted certain things certain ways. So I had Kleenex all over the place, right? So she said, my daughter was cleaning up, and she was like, "Why Mama got all these boxes of Kleenex everywhere? She don't need all these boxes." And when we did the first one, every single person in the room, we were all over the place looking for a box of Kleenex, because the idea is to heal, and there are sometimes things in our past that's going to cause us to cry.
Absolutely.
And
Cleansing of the soul.
And it's
That's
women only, exactly, women only, and it's top secret. So I've never posted anything on Facebook. I've never posted pictures, because I want the women that come to know that this is a secure
healing.
group. It's a healing group. And I would have some of my women to say, "I'm not coming to the next meeting because every time I come, I'm crying." And then they would call me and say, "Well, what day is the next meeting again?" It's like, "I thought you weren't coming." "I'm coming." And every time they would leave, "I'm not coming again," and never miss a meeting. And not only is it healing for them, it's healing for me too.
Yeah, it helps
Some things,
to
what
tap
you
in
do
a little
helps
bit
people.
further. It helps you
Exactly.
tap in a little bit further and go a little bit deeper. This has been an amazing conversation, Laquita. How can people get in touch with you if they want to know more, to work with you, anything that you have going on? How can they reach you?
So they can call me, 678-608-9948. That's my phone number, and I answer my phone. They can also send me an email to Laquita at afailure2communicate.com, or they can visit my website at afailure2communicate.com. They can also type in PayProvi, PAPROVI, publishing.com, and contact me. They can send a message, email me, call me, text me. And I'll give a little an offer. So if anybody wants to reach out to me and they tell me that they heard the, saw this live interview, I'll give them a special discount on my services.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for spending your time with me
Thank
today.
you.
It has been a pleasure. Guys, make sure tomorrow tune in live to the weekly dose of spirituality, streaming on YouTube, streaming on Facebook and Instagram. Also live every Wednesday, the Be a CEO live show right here in the Unicorn Tribe, and that is UNIKORNTRYBE. Be a CEO is an acronym, and it stands for Balanced Entrepreneur, Action Oriented, Christian, Empowered, and On the Money. We want to see you right here in the Unicorn Tribe. We are a group of women who are kingdom minded, kingdom focused, and we are doing business God's way.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you for tuning in today and have the most amazing day ever. Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.